Now let's get started. I'm pleased to welcome Ruth Reynoso today. Ruth has over 30 years experience in education teaching high school students in general, honors, and AP chemistry courses. Before joining Coy Education, she was a teacher, mentor, and staff professional development expert in a large urban high school district. She's been recognized as an Arizona Master Teacher. As a COI certified PBIS trainer leader coach, Ruth has led dozens of schools in improving their behavior systems to make school a more effective and safe learning environment for all. We're very excited to hear what Ruth has to share with us today, so we're going to transfer control over to her so we can see her screen in the presentation. While we do that, it'll take just a second. I will remind you again that we'll be on Twitter at #OWLeadingChange, and you can ask questions through Twitter or through the WebEx Q&A control feature. So it looks like we are making that transition, and we should be seeing Ruth's screen here any second.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to this program on starting your Chico program. Again, my name is Ruth Reynoso, and I am proof that there is life after teaching and retirement. And it is very, very good to be here with you from sunny Arizona. I don't know where everybody's from, but I'm glad you decided to join us and work with your kiddos to get the Chico program started. So let's go ahead and jump in. Again, there's all my information so you can find out about me. I also am a parent and a new grandparent. I have a 3.5-month-old granddaughter, first girl since me, so that's very exciting for our family, especially for my mother, who is now a great-grandmother for the first time to a girl. I have lots and lots of experience, not only as a teacher, but as a coach in a school, in an inner city school in Phoenix, and I have worked as the team lead for a PBIS team at our inner city school of nearly 3,000 kiddos. So I bring my expertise not only from the classroom, but as a team lead and now as a trainer and coach for COI. So I am very excited to present this with you today. So this is a program for students who are not successful with Tier 1 interventions alone, and they need additional support. And I think right now, if you think of your kids on your campus, you could probably see their faces already, those kids that are not being successful with Tier 1, and we need to bump up their support. So in order to do that, we come in with a Tier 2 intervention, and that is then our Chico. So let's look at what we're going to talk about today. We're going to discuss the Chico program. We're going to identify the steps to implement Chico. We're going to role play. Well, you're not. We are here in the office are going to role play a Chico experience so you can hear what a day sounds like for a student involved success at your school site. I remind you again, you see at the bottom that you can tweet at #OWLeadingChange, at OdysseyWare, or at COI Education. So please feel free to do that and give us your feedback and questions. So I'm going to start out with this graphic of Dr. Yadira Flores telling her story, although you can see that if you go to that YouTube site. But quite honestly, I think I'm very, very equipped to be able to tell her story even as it is mine. And it's how check-in, check-out can relate to life in the real world. And like Dr. Flores says, I too have always had problems with my weight. I was a chunky child, I was a chunky adolescent, I was a chunky young adult, and a chunky adult. And so I've tried every diet out there known to man. And the one I found the most success with was Weight Watchers. And I will tell you right now that the reason Weight Watchers is so important and so successful is because you have to check in with someone. So it's really quite interesting when you have to go in every week and you take your little food log in with you, and you step up on that scale. And when you step up on that scale, there's somebody standing there that's holding you accountable for every food item that you put in your mouth and every pound you gained or you didn't gain. And they're not slamming you. I never had anybody say, oh, gee, fatty, get off the scale. It was always, okay, what are you going to do to fix it now? What can you do to make it better so that you have a better week? Let's talk about your choices. And I was educated on how to take control of my life. And so it really does relate to check-in, check-out. Instead of weight and pounds, we're talking about behavior of students in the classroom. So it's a really good analogy, and we'll refer to it several times. But that's also the reason why at our opening slide we have the scale on there, so you can see how it relates in the real world. So let's discuss the CHICO program, check-in, check-out. It is a secondary targeted intervention. It is very evidence-based, and it's also known as BEP, Behavior Education Program, Check and Connect, Check, Connect, and Expect. They're all pretty much the same thing. It's the same system, and it's effective in reducing overall students' disruptive behavior. So it is evidence-based, and this is why we want to share this with you today, and so that you can see why we're using it. Just like the scale, it's to prevent students from escalating their behavior and provide them more frequent feedback so that they can prevent future behavior problems, so that they can learn the right way to behave in class and stop getting in trouble and disrupting the learning in the classroom. In order for this to happen, we must have Tier 1 in place. We have to be able to identify those students who are not responding to Tier 1 and need extra help in their behavior. We need to have administrative support, and we have to have a communication system set up so that staff can talk to staff and we can get the help that those kids need before we place those kids into Tier 2 interventions. So before you start to implement any Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention, you want to make sure that you have Tier 1 in place. So how do you know this? Well, you use a checklist to check to see if to evaluate what's going on with your Tier 1 implementation. You use data to figure out where problems are occurring with the Big 7. How many tickets are being given out? Are they given out consistently from all staff on your campus? So if kids are getting the universal dose of Tier 1, then we can put them into Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. So which students benefit? It's those kids that have moderate problem behaviors. These aren't, CHICO is not for your students who are your frequent flyers all the time. These are the kids that have maybe 3 to 6 referrals. These are the kiddos that the function of their behavior is maintained by adult attention. These are the students that need that extra adult attention, and we've identified that, and those are the students that will benefit from check-in, check-out. Just a real quick overview. Students will check in with an adult at the start of each school day. They check out with the same adult at the conclusion of each school day, and they get feedback from teachers throughout the day. So again, this is why you really want to make sure that the students that you have picked for this check-in, check-out are getting the attention that they need from the adults on campus, and that they are getting that feedback. An overview that you can see, just a graphic organizer. A student is recommended for CHICO, and we'll talk a little bit later on about how the students are recommended. There's a variety of ways that we can recommend students for check-in, check-out. But they check in with the coordinator in the morning, and they pick up their daily progress report. The coordinator reviews your goals and issues the new progress report with the student so that they are set for an appropriate, successful school day. The child attends class, and the teachers award points based on the meeting of the goals. So whatever the goals are that that child is working on, that's what the teacher's giving them feedback for, and they sign that at the end of the class or at the end of whatever piece of classroom time that they have. So if they're in a full day class, maybe after reading or after math. At the end of the day, the student checks out. If they're old enough, you have them calculate and do a little math to get their points. They receive reinforcement if the goal is met. And then the coordinator monitors that progress so that we know if we need to revise the goals or if we can exit the student out of the program. An important, very important piece that's new for a lot of schools in working with kiddos that are having behavior problems is the parent support piece. With check-in, check-out, then the parent and guardian reviews and signs that daily progress so the child takes it home and reinforces the student for doing what they need to do to be successful. And this form is available for you. If you see down there at the bottom at the kauaieducation.com under the resources page, you will see this exact form, so you can use this to share it with your staff so that they can get the overview, as well as parents and students when you're teaching. So it's time for a little bit of reflection. So I have a couple of questions to ask you. What are the prerequisites before starting a Tier 2 program, and who benefits most from check-in, check-out? So if you want to take a minute and go into the chat section on your screen and put in your responses or ask any questions that you have at this time, I will stop talking and give you a minute to do that.
We've got quite a few people writing in, and most are all in agreement with that the Tier 1 needs to have been implemented first before moving on to this step.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. And who benefits most from check-in, check-out?
And we had a resounding response that students are the ones that benefit most, particularly those with moderate behavior problems and those with adult attention-seeking behaviors.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that information. Are there any questions that anybody has at this point?
We did have a couple questions come in, and one, which is on the heels of the second question you asked in the reflection, is why don't you recommend using Chico for the worst types of behavior problems?
Well, we want to try to get those kids at the beginning and limit their need for it. You're only going to have some of your upper level kids, your kids with Tier 3 behaviors. Some of those kids will be in check-in, check-out along with other Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. But you really want to start out, at least at the beginning, with your focus on those students who are in that moderate 3 to 6 referrals, so that they then have the support that they need. Sometimes we do see other kids get in with more behavior problems, but we recommend just primarily starting out with those students who are your moderate problem behavior kids.
Okay, that makes sense. Our next question is, can you modify Chico to address other functions of behavior besides adult attention?
That's a good question. Absolutely. But see, the thing, the thing is if you have a student who is misbehaving to avoid adult attention, they're misbehaving because they don't want attention from adults, and you put them in a situation to where now they're having to check in with an adult in the morning. They have to check in with their teachers throughout the day. They have to check in with an adult at the end of the day. This is not going to be what they're interested in, what's going to benefit them. They are going to flat refuse to participate in check-in, check-out because they don't want adult attention. And so that's why you really do want to focus on those students who are seeking adult attention.
All right, that definitely makes sense. Do you think that Chico works for students who are not refusing to work in class?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And could you elaborate on what the types of behaviors are that qualify for Tier 2 in the Chico program?
It'd be any of those behaviors on your behavior flow chart that you have designed as minor, or probably just minor behaviors that the kid is repeating it over and over in the classroom and is ending up getting referrals for. And the Tier 1 interventions of teaching them the expectations, reinforcing when you see them, and using the corrective behavior from your behavior flow chart. Those are the things that are going to guide you as to who needs that. So it would be a child who's not responding, who will not sit still, who will not quit poking somebody, but it's those behaviors from your minor flow chart, for your behavior flow chart.
And do you feel that check-in, check-out could be modified or is effective to support chronic behavior issues?
I think it could be, but I again would caution you to start with your children, and it is chronic behaviors if you're dealing with those things that are repeated in the classroom. I'm not sure you would use it for major behaviors such as fighting or drugs and alcohol. That's not the purpose of check-in, check-out. But for those minor behaviors that are chronic and occurring time after time, absolutely.
Okay, and we're going to take just one last question in this segment, so we're sure to keep on track. But the other questions that have come in, I will keep for our Q&A at the end. So how well do you feel that Chico works for apathetic students?
Well, actually, I think I love it because I just saw a bunch of kids in some of my classrooms when you said apathetic. So absolutely, I think it works because sometimes for kids that are apathetic and don't want to do anything, sometimes as long as it's not that they're trying to avoid adult attention, but perhaps they're just trying to not do anything, this is something that will benefit those kids because it's a whole do what you're being asked to do so that you don't have to continue on and check in and check out and have that constant attention from the adults. So, yeah, I think it could work with those apathetic kids as well because then they know somebody's watching them and monitoring them and supporting them to help them be successful.
Yeah, that's a very good point, that support that's needed. Okay, so as I said, we do have a couple more questions that came in, but we're going to let Ruth move on ahead, and I will put those questions into the queue for later on.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's identify the steps to implementing check-in and check-out. And absolutely, it's very similar to that flow chart that I went over earlier, but we're going to go in a little bit more detail. So the first step is that the check-in, check-out adult greets the students, collects the point card with the parent's signature, and reviews those behavioral goals with the students. So what is it they're going to be working on that day? So the student receives a new point card at the beginning of that day, and they take that point card to all the award students 0 to 2 points for appropriate behavior during the class period or the time period that they are giving that information. At the end of the day, the student returns the point cards to the same check-in, check-out adult at the end of the school day. Students earn rewards above and beyond the reinforcement system once they have earned enough points. They take the point card home each night. Parents sign the report card and return it to school with the student the next morning. Now, I do want you to notice that the last two in here are not really steps, but they're part of the training, and we'll talk about this later on in the presentation. But we ask parents to provide acknowledgement and praise when the student has had a good day, and to not punish or scold the students after an unsuccessful day, because that's going to defeat the purpose of having the parent support. So this would be an example of the daily progress report that you might use. Again, if you're interested in seeing these, they are on the COY website, coy-education.com/resources, and you could find an example of this that can be changed to meet your school day. Here's one for younger children that instead of numbers where they grade students, and you can figure out how this works in your campus to be able to use it and have kids do that. At this point, we're going to role play a Chico experience, and so I'm going to bring over my COY players here that are going to help me role play this activity, and this will be probably one of the most award-winning presentations you have ever heard. So let's go ahead and get started in this Chico experience. Good morning, Johnny. How are you doing this morning?
Good.
I'm so glad to hear that. Share with me your point card from Friday. I see that you had a great day on Friday. You earned 90% of the points. Your teacher reported that you were meeting your goals most of the day. You were being safe, respectful, and responsible. Great job, Johnny. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Are you ready to have another great day?
Yeah, I'll try.
I know you can do it. Remember, your goals are to be safe, respectful, and responsible in class. Being safe means keeping your hands and feet to yourself. Being respectful means raising your hand before speaking. And being responsible means having all your supplies and ready to learn. Did you bring your notebook and your pencil today?
No, I forgot my pencil.
Do you remember where to borrow a pencil if you forgot to bring one?
Yeah, on the side of your desk.
Okay, go ahead and take one and bring it back after school. Here's your point card. Remember to give it to your teacher after science, math, and reading class, and bring it with you when we meet after school. Have a great day.
Johnny hands his point card to his first period teacher.
Here's my point card.
Hi, Johnny. Thanks for bringing in your point card. I know you'll have a great period. Remember to be safe, respectful, and responsible.
All right.
Johnny goes to his seat. Johnny then approaches teacher at the end of the period.
I think I earned all 2s.
I agree you earned all 2s for being respectful and responsible, but I noticed you were tapping and elbowing your classmate, and I had to ask you to stop a few times. Were you being safe during science?
No.
What does it mean to be safe?
Keeping my hands and feet to myself.
Yes, being safe is keeping your hands and feet to yourself. So for this period, you earned a 2 for being respectful and responsible, but a 0 for being safe. I know you can do better next time.
The teacher fills out the scores for this period and hands it back to Johnny.
Hey, Johnny, how was your day?
Okay.
Go ahead and add up your score and let me know if you need help.
Johnny does the math and scores the point sheet.
Share with me your point card, Johnny. I see that you earned 80% of your points today. I know you had some difficulties in science, keeping your hands to yourself, but you were able to meet your goals most of the day. Keep up the good work. I know you will get 100% tomorrow. Since you met your goal for today, go ahead and pick out a reward from the treasure box. Remember to take the point card to your mother and let her know how you did. Please ask her to sign the form and bring it back to me tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
All right.
Hi, Johnny. Welcome home. How was school today?
Okay.
Share with me your point card. Tell me how well you did.
Here it is. I followed the rules most of the day.
I know you'll remember to follow the rules again tomorrow, and you'll continue to be successful. I'm so proud of you, Johnny. Let me sign your card so you can take it back to your Chico coordinator tomorrow. Please put it back in your backpack so we don't forget.
Thanks, Mom. You're the best mom a boy can have. I love you.
Yay! All right, so there is our Chico experience. So thank you then for allowing us to give that Chico experience to you. And what we will do now is do a little bit of reflection. And so I'm going to ask you, question 3, why do you think Chico, check in, check out, works to reduce problem behaviors? Again, go to your chat area to answer that question.
Looks like we're getting some responses in, including it puts a degree of accountability on the students, and that it provides additional reinforcement to meet those school expectations. It puts students in contact with a positive adult.
Okay, Emily, just a second. I know you're talking, but we've had a technical difficulty here, so hang on just a second.
No problem.
There we go. Okay, we should be good to go now.
Are you back? Okay.
I'm back.
The responses are
unplugged so we could do our play works there, and we plugged back and we lost you.
Okay. No, you are back, and as I said, we've got lots of responses coming in, many of which are about providing accountability for the students, or putting accountability for the students, that it provides some additional reinforcement to meet those school expectations. That it puts the students in touch on a regular basis with a positive adult influence, that the student is constantly reminded of the rules by the teacher and him or herself. It increases home-to-school communication. Lots of votes for giving adult support. Provides them with opportunities to reflect on their behaviors. Yeah, so I think that pretty well sums it up. Gives them positive reinforcement even when they're not perfect. So it sounds like folks in the audience did absorb what you had to say in that role play.
Oh, it was incredible, wasn't it? The acting was just phenomenal.
It's Academy Award season.
That's right. That's right. We'll be performing Saturday night somewhere, I'm sure. All right. So let's go ahead and move on and look at what the official answers are for that question, and you'll see that you actually hit every one of them. Again, this is exactly what people were saying. You have an improved structure. You have prompts throughout the day that are positive. The adult is positive, and the student chooses to participate. Again, that's an important piece for why they should be attention-seeking from adults. They're set up for success. Their first contact in the morning is positive, and throughout the class period it's positive, and it's just a consistent reminder for kids about what they need to be doing and paying attention to. We've got feedback more often, so the child knows when they're doing things more often. It's tied strictly to the behavior that we're looking for it to improve, and we're less likely to look at and pay attention to the things that the kid is doing wrong, because we're looking for what the child is doing correct. And then, of course, that positive piece, that linking, that support piece back with the parents. So you have that increased communication, and it's a positive student and parent contact, which I think for a lot of our kids that are misbehaving, may not be happening at home. So we have that opportunity for that to happen. So let's look at a couple of more questions here. Question 4, what facts about check-in, check-out will you share with colleagues? And then question 5, what are some facilitators and or barriers about implementing Chico at your school? So again, I encourage you to answer in with in the chat room.
So we're starting to get a few responses to question 4.
Okay.
Many of which are that Chico is a relatively simple program to implement, but seems to be highly effective. So that's a positive that folks are going to share with colleagues. Sorry, I'm just scanning through these. That it's an effective Tier 2 intervention. That it's a good way to get that home-to-school communication going, and it's a good way to support students in a more personal, hands-on way.
Absolutely.
In terms of question 5, one of the things that some folks are feeling are going to be a barrier are just having that time during the day to spend with the students and to implement the check-in, check-out. Some folks are feeling hesitant about the reaction from home and getting that involvement at home. It appears that some schools have slightly more than 15% of students who are in need of Tier 2 support, so there's some concern about bandwidth.
Okay.
There's always a concern with new programs, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, time and resources. Yeah, so I think that sums us up right now. Training, of course, is an issue to make sure the program is done with fidelity. Some reluctance to implement something new or to put something that requires that much accountability. That there's not a Tier 1 program in place. Actually, that's come in several times.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let's look at some of those elements of check-in, check-out, and I'll be able to actually talk about some of those barriers when we get into this next section on the 4 elements that are essential for success for your program. First off, you have system elements, training elements, data analysis, and progress monitoring. And 3 and 4 actually go very closely hand in hand. So let's just talk about the system elements. First off, you do have to have faculty and staff commitment. You have to have a staff that's willing to take the time to do this and support the students. You need to be able to have a daily progress report of some sort and to be able to analyze the data from that. And then you need to have an additional reinforcement system for those kiddos that meet their goals at the end of the week. So if we look at faculty and staff commitment, we're talking about 5 extra minutes per day. So we want an adult who can spend 30 to 45 minutes each day to check in and check out with students. This is not the teacher in the classroom, so you have to be very selective about who you choose for your check-in, check-out coordinator. And we do recommend that it be the same person that the student checks in with in the morning and they check out with in the afternoon. So that you can then make sure that you have all that information in one place, and the kids can build that relationship with that one person. And then we also need to have a team that can meet at least every 2 weeks to identify new check-in, check-out candidates to monitor progress. Are we going to move kids in, or how are we going to move kids out? And following that that system, we need to have the daily progress report of some sort. Again, I point you to the COI website, coi-education.com/resources for some example comments for your daily progress report. And then you need to have some reinforcement ideas. So maybe this gives you an idea of things that you could do in our little role play activity. There was a treasure box that the kid could go pick something out that was special. But maybe they get extra time with adults. Maybe they get a special lunch, something that's above and beyond your normal reinforcement system under Tier 1, so that the kids are getting something in addition for meeting their goals for every week. So here's just an example of some ideas that might be of interest to some kids, particularly those kids that do like that adult attention. So think about some ideas that you could use for that as well. Element 2 is the training, and that was mentioned in some of the questions and some of the barriers. You do have to plan to train your Chico coordinator. They need to know what it is they're doing with that daily progress report, how they log that information in, how they keep track of it. That it is literally a check-in, check-out. They're not talking to the kids for 45 minutes. They're going in, they're saying, how'd you do? And good job, what are you going to do to change it? Think about those Weight Watchers meetings. There are 40 to 50 women and men waiting in line to get on that scale. You can't have that 35-minute conversation with the support person there over why you chose to have margarita and tacos rather than a salad. So think about how you can do those things. You've got to train your staff so that they know what to do when those forms come. Your teachers, students, the students need to be trained, and we'll look at that in just a minute, and we have to train the parents as well. So you want to teach your students when, where, and how to check in with the Chico coordinator. Where do they go? What time are they supposed to be there? And the Chico coordinator needs to know how to assess, reinforce, and set up or redirect the student to reaching their goals that day. With the teachers, you need to teach the students when, where, and how to check in with the classroom teacher. Some teachers set up a spot in their room that when the students walk in, the child puts their paperwork right there and the teacher knows it's there, because the last thing we want to have happen is a kid walk in, where's my paper? I got to do, baby, you got to sign my paper, and it disturbs the classroom. So how do we teach the students when, where, and how to check in with the classroom teacher, and how does the teacher set up the student for success? So that's where that dialogue from staff to staff has to come into play, because the check-in coordinator needs to talk with the teacher and say, hey, this is what we're focusing on this week for little Johnny's behavior, and how can you set him up in the classroom for success and be able to evaluate that behavior, provide feedback, and complete that form in a short, quick, easy way at the end of the class period. We have to check out, do the afternoon checkout routine. Where does the student go to check out with the coordinator? How does then the coordinator collect the data from the form, acknowledge success, and then and encourage the students to continue to improve? And then for older students, you can certainly consider having them self-record how they're doing. Maybe they do their own graph, maybe they do their own math, so that they have ownership of what they're doing with their behavior. With the family, you teach the students when, where, and how to review that daily progress report with a parent or guardian. In my household, it was never give it to my dad before he ate, because it was going to be really ugly if you did that. So and then you've got to teach the parent and the guardian the purpose of the progress report and how to read it. And important here, very hugely important, is that the parent and the guardian only acknowledges success and signs the form. A student shouldn't get grounded or punished if they didn't make their points that day. Element 3 is the data analysis piece. Track of how is each student doing on a daily progress report, so that we can analyze and find out whether or not they're making progress. If you look at this graph right here, it looks like Bill the young man at the bottom there in the red, I don't know if you can see the color like I can, but Bill isn't making the progress that he needs to be making. So maybe check-in, check-out isn't working for Bill, or what else is going on that he would need additional support. We need to know with data analysis, is the student being successful? Is the student working through the process and making progress so that we can move that student out because they've reached their goals and then bring in more students. So you use that daily progress report to analyze and guide that decision. With the coordinator, they keep a spreadsheet, a weekly summary. They put the student's name, what their goal is, and how they did every day. And so they can keep track of, again, how each student is doing. And this is part of the job of the coordinator. And you will see again that this form, this weekly summary, is available at the coy-education.com/resources page, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. Element 4 is monitoring the progress. You want to track the percent of possible points earned. Teacher complete summaries. So maybe you have teachers actually give you feedback and direct observations. Go in and observe a student and see how they're doing in the class and if their behavior has improved. Involve the students in the goal setting, especially for your older kids. What is it that they know? A lot of them know what they need to be doing. Involve them in that goal setting and let them keep track of it. Involve the PBIS team to figure out what students should be recommended for to enter or exit check-in, check-out. And it could be based on your number of ODRs. Maybe it's based on a behavior screening that you do two to four times a year, or based on teacher referral. Then you could have an agenda where your team meets and very quickly talks over who's making progress, what do we need to do, what do we need to change, and discuss new referrals. So just have a meeting to talk about those kids that are making progress or not making progress and where we are with that. Part of check-in, check-out is a self-assessment to find out if you're ready for it. Again, I encourage you to go to the COI website, and this form is there. So look at it before you decide to implement it. And where are you? Do you have things in place, in progress, or not in place, so that when you get ready to set up check-in, check-out, you have all the pieces in place, and it then will lead to a successful implementation, and that's on the website. All right, so question 6. Which of the 4 elements, of, let me go back and find them in my notes, the 4 elements of training and I'm lost now. Hang on just a second. I'm looking so I can remind you of what they were. Training elements, system elements, training elements, data analysis, or progress monitoring may be the biggest barrier, and how do you plan to overcome this barrier?
So from the responses that are coming in so far, training is definitely rising to the top.
And I'm guessing that's because of time, which is usually a big piece of that.
Exactly. In terms of overcoming the barrier, we're getting some really interesting responses of just making sure that the teachers participating really understand the impact that this is going to have on classroom management and how that it will ultimately save time. So they might be spending a little more now, but gaining some in reduced behavior problems.
Absolutely.
Getting buy-in from administration, just finding the time for training, getting that principal support, streamlining training. We do have a couple people saying that the data analysis will be a bit of a challenge, but overwhelmingly, we're looking at training.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, I think at this point I've covered all the objectives that we have for today. We've discussed the program, identified the steps. You overheard a wonderful, talented role play, and identifying those elements that are essential for success. What I'd like to do now is open it up to any questions that still have not been answered through this, and invite you to start your action planning and putting into place how you can implement check-in, check-out on your campus. So, Emily, if you want to start throwing some questions my way.
Yeah.
See what happens in the last few.
We have a lot of questions that have piled up. I will let you take just a quick sip of water, and while you do thank our sponsor, Odysseyware, for hosting today's webinar and for bringing Ruth and all of her expertise and ideas to us. So Odysseyware provides personalized learning opportunities that help keep students engaged and support their individualized learning needs. It provides educators with powerful and flexible online personalized learning solutions that empower students in all kinds of learning environments. You can learn more about Odysseyware at odysseyware.com, and we've got that. We'll have that posted here in just a second. So, Ruth, as I said, we have had a lot of questions come in, so we will get started and get through as many as we possibly can.
All right.
So, good luck. What grade level is Chico most effective for?
It's not grade level dependent. It can be used at any grade level, from little bitty kids to the high school kids.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it from what you outlined to us, and you would just maybe modify rewards or the types of behaviors you're looking at depending on age.
Your DPR form might change of the child, but it's good for any grade level.
Okay, great. If you have students who have ADHD that are not being treated with medication, would they benefit from Chico?
I would think they would. Again, they're getting the positive adult attention, and I think it's just that constant reminder throughout the day of how they can get better with their behavior. And it's just that constant supportive reminder from the coordinator to the staff member to the teacher to the parent.
Yeah, I would certainly think
absolutely.
That additional reinforcement would be really helpful for those ADHD students. Would a behavior plan goal sheet be appropriate to use with Chico?
I would think you could easily use a behavior plan flow sheet with that, absolutely. Again, you don't want, I would limit how many behaviors you're trying to correct in a short amount of time, because some of those behavior plans have quite a lot of information on it, and maybe you pick the current one or two things that you want that child to work on that week and get better at. But yes, I think you could. Absolutely.
All right. And in your experience, has Chico been effective with chronic attendance issues?
Again, with chronic attendance, yeah, because they know the kids know that somebody's watching them and somebody's cares about them and supports them. So that could be a piece of it. It may not be quite as successful because that's not as much a behavior process that disrupts daily classroom learning, but I think it could help. Yeah, and that's a lot of times kids that are cutting school, that's an escape issue and not really an adult attention issue.
Right, yeah. So definitely be looking at the reasons why you're putting students in Chico and addressing that. Yeah.
Right.
So this question came in when you went through your role play, actually. So how do you collect data if you're sending the Chico card home?
The child brings that data progress into the check-in coordinator. So they take it home and they bring it back. Right. They bring it back the next day.
Circular action there, so you can get that data logged.
Absolutely.
So we got this question asked in a variety of ways, and I'll make it a two-part question. Do you have some recommendations for how you can engage parents in this process so that the students are getting the support at home? And if you're not getting that kind of across the board from parents, do you still think that Chico can be effective?
I think with the parent piece, it's literally bringing the parents in and explaining the process of what check-in, check-out is about and the support system that's involved for that. And you have to train the parents and encourage them to be successful and positive supporting to their kids. However, if you know that you have a parent or a guardian or home life where you know that's not going to happen, where the child is not going to be supported, they're going to get punished or grounded or whatever else goes along with it, then absolutely it can still work. Then you've got a couple of options there. One would be, is there another adult on campus that could have a positive parent role with that child? So maybe it's their favorite teacher throughout their school years, maybe it's their PE teacher or a coach that could play the part of the parent in that particular piece, just giving them that support outside of the classroom. And the other piece would be just not to have that parent piece at all and just have the kid reporting, and the coordinator and the teachers are the support for the student. But either one of those, I would prefer if you would use somebody else outside of this child's regular school day if the parents aren't available.
Yeah, I would think having that kind of two-pronged adult interaction and accountability would add to the effectiveness of it. Yeah. And that actually dovetails into a question that we just got. As if you feel like Chico could be effective for an 18-year-old or older student who happens to live independently.
Again, I would think the same, absolutely, and I think the same thing. We have a lot of kids that are 18 or emancipated, or that I still think this could work for them, but I would have them pick a teacher that perhaps was not one of their current classroom teachers, somebody that is a positive role model. It could be the maintenance people, could be the cafeteria lady, somebody that child relates to and respects their opinion and will use that. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay, we have had a couple requests for the copy of your Chico script, your award-winning role-playing, because folks feel like that would be helpful in training their teachers. So if that's something you can get to us, we'll get it out to the audience. But yes, your role-play was very, very wonderfully done, and others want to reproduce it.
Well, so the script is part of our overall training, so it is limited to us coming in and working with schools on a TLC training where staff is learning to present the training that we do with PBIS.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you can check that at info@COI Education for that information.
Perfect, yeah, and I definitely, we've had several questions about the materials and other training that might be available, so folks definitely go out and check the COI Education website because they've got lots of things on offer for you and your colleagues.
Well, I encourage you at that point, though, Emily, to even say contact COI or myself, Ruth, at COI-education.com for more information for starting your Tier 1 system of positive behavior supports at the school. We would be more than happy to come in and work with school teams and talk to you on the phone. So please feel free to reach out.
Yes, absolutely. I second that. The COI team has a lot of expertise. Ruth is just one of the many people working there who can provide lots of great insights and information and training for your school and district. So definitely reach out to Ruth, reach out to COI, and they'll be happy to help. We've got a few minutes left. Let's squeeze in a couple more questions. Someone asked what ODR means.
ODR is an office discipline referral.
All right, perfect. Can you give us a little bit of information in the minutes we have left about what a transition out of Chico might look like?
That would be maybe that the child then starts to maybe just check in the mornings and they don't check in at the end of the day, you start to wean them off that way, or you start to wean them off of the forms, but they can still come in and just check in with that adult during the day if they need to. And you just fade that out. You fade that support out from the Chico coordinator.
Okay. Do you see that students are put into check-in, check-out, get out of it, and then get back in? Is it effective to move students in and out that way?
Yes and no. Most of the time, kids, once they've been in and they've started to experience success, don't need to come back in. But sometimes if something happens to change a behavior, they might need to come back in for a short amount of time. But I would say for the most part, once a kid is in and you've been able to transition them out, then they usually do not need the support, again, because they've learned to do their own piece. And remember that this is just one of many Tier 2 programs or Tier 3 programs that we can train your staff on. This is just one piece of what we can do. Just call.
Right. So definitely we'll be sure to include the contact information for Ruth and Coy Education in the follow-up email that we send out. And in that follow-up email, you'll have access to the recording of this webinar if it's something that you'd like to watch again or share with colleagues, as well as the PowerPoint or the handout slides, so you've got access to all of that great information that Ruth went through today. I am sad that we have run out of time, but we squeezed a lot into this hour, so thank you again so much, Ruth, and for Coy Education for lending us your expertise today. And thank you to OdysseyWare for sponsoring this webinar. Please do visit OdysseyWare's website as well as the Coy Education website for more information on how both of those companies can help you and your students succeed academically and socially and emotionally. So